Buddy. We are live. It's Wednesday morning. It's already the halfway point of winter has been reached and has been passed. So we are now supposedly getting towards warmer. I'll believe it when I see it. We're joined this morning by Simphiwe, who is in the studio in Johannesburg, and by Carvin Goldstone. Hey, Carvin, how you doing, man?
Good morning. I'm good, Gareth. I'm good. Is this winter halfway point? Doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, that's what they say, but I don't know. I mean, listen, these calendars can't be trusted. It's like the weather at night on the TV. You never know what to believe. How are you doing, man? What's been happening with you?
I've been good. Durban. I'm in Durban, so Durban's been interesting. Lots of new things happening in Durban. So you're finding new ways to survive. Like we have water rationing now as like a consistent thing. So
water rationing.
Certain hours there's no water. So you have load shedding and water rationing at the same time.
Jesus. They're trying to make it as horrible as possible to live in South Africa, right?
Okay, so for me, like not having water was like one of those things I just didn't understand from like a day to day, and then after the floods, it became like a consistent thing, and then you realize, like, I take load shedding, but that's where we are. Like we're deciding which one you'd rather have.
Well, I mean, isn't it horrible that that's like Sophie's choice? I mean, you now have to make a decision between two really horrible things, and you almost go, oh, we're so lucky. We only had load shedding today. We didn't just have, we didn't have load shedding and the water rationing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like the politics in some ways. Like people are like, who are you gonna vote for? I'm like, well, the way things are, it's like having diabetes, and then they're saying, what do you want, Coke, Fanta, or Sprite? You're like, okay, one's gonna kill me quicker.
Oh, Jesus. Well, let me introduce everybody to you in case they don't know who you are, in which case they've probably been under a rock. But Carvin Goldstone is one of the biggest names in South African comedy at the moment. He's the winner of the Comics Choice Comedian of the Year 2018. Previous winners of that were Trevor Noah and Loyiso Gola, among others. He's also a multiple award-winning broadcast journalist, having received 4 Vodacom Journalist of the Year awards. That's quite a balancing act, comedian and journalist, right?
Well, you can only serve one master, so journalism had to go.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to choose one. Like one is exactly the opposite of the other in some ways, because one is, factual and insensible and rational. The other one is like wacky and funny and entertaining. And like I've never been a journalist, and then people will say, but you're on the radio, and I'm like, no. Just because you're on the radio doesn't mean you could be an entertainer, but you're not necessarily a journalist. I've never been a journalist, and being a journalist, you have certain things you got to do. Some of them are really, really hard work, and it's boring, and it's, it's about ethics, and it's about research and doing things properly. And the other one is like just as much work, except you aren't held to a professional standard like the others. You're in competition with your colleagues, but it's a totally different ball game, right?
Yeah, unless like in 2019, for the first time in my life, after doing comedy for about 15 years, I performed in front of my parents. So they'd never seen the show. And you have to be factual then, because and my parents live in London. So you feel like at any moment my father's a farmer from KZN South Coast. Like even though he's been in London for 20 years, he can't lose who he is. And so you just like worry that any stage he's going to jump up and say, it's all lies. This boy is telling lies here, people.
Right. And I suppose in some ways they were more proud of you when you were a journalist, because they could tell people, oh, my son's a journalist. When you're a comedian, even if you're earning better money or you're having more fun or you're really being your authentic self, it's a damn side harder. And people don't always go, he calls himself a comedian. It's like, he's an Instagram influencer. You had to win a couple of awards there to make it count.
Yeah, and like my parents, when they left me as a journalist. They left me like happy, like be fine, hey. And someone told me, your son is on stage telling jokes now. Well, they're like, what? Like, yeah, since the guy's left, he's been doing his own thing. Yeah.
It's so funny because my parents have never really understood what I do, and
yeah, I can imagine. I can relate.
They probably think I'm wasting my time waiting for the next big thing to come. I've got bad news for them. There's no hidden career behind this one. This is the whole thing. Anyway, listen. So let me
picking you up to.
no, exactly. So I mean, there's lots that we got to talk about with you, but I do want to point out that you've been performing in the UK. You've done shows in the Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, Swaziland, Zimbabwe, across Southern Africa. What's your favorite audience when you're standing up doing stand up?
So if I had to make it generic, my favorite audience would be the unknown. So that unknown fact is always interesting. So no matter which part of the country or the world, the less they know about you, the kind of more interesting it is for me. When the audience knows you and they follow you, there is a bit of liberty. They let you do things that you probably wouldn't get away with in like a different space because they're there for you. These are your people that say it's funny. So I kind of enjoy the idea of going into a country or region where they are fans, but like a lot of them are just like interested, like what's going to happen here. Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's almost an honesty to it, right? Because if they're your fan, then there's an expectation. Whereas if there's an honest transaction and they're like, oh, well, there's this new comedy show going on and I don't know who this guy is, but let's give him a try. And they arrive with a better attitude in some ways.
Yeah, they do. And they, it's so wild because I was at I think it was the Melbourne Comedy Festival and I had a solo show there. And so I expect South Africans to turn up wherever I am, and then like I do. So I usually do like a roll call. Any South Africans, and like I was surprised, like maybe 20% or 30% of the audience picked up their hands. The rest was just people, and I was like, guys, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And they're like, yeah, we just saw this thing. We thought this would be cool to come to.
So
and it's a thing. It's the voices, right? It's the voices, like especially in big festivals like that one, where you've got tons of European comics and American and Australian. And it's like, oh, there's an odd voice here. It's not Trevor. There's another voice from South Africa.
Right. But in general, I mean, like South African comedy is suddenly quite respectable because it was, there was a time where I don't think anyone really took comedy in South Africa. Even the comedians didn't take it that seriously. And then thanks again to people, and it's always worth mentioning these guys, and I'm just glad and I'm proud to know them. People like David Kau, people like John Flismus, people like Mel Miller. These guys are the ones who made comedy in South Africa what it is and opened it up for a whole lot of younger people. And there's just such a swathe and such a variety of really, really funny people doing their thing. And it just makes me happy because as shit as the economy is, and as hard as it is to live in South Africa, and I'm not complaining, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else in the world. Doing comedy and being able to make a living out of it is an awesome thing. And you're putting laughter back into the world, and it's no small accomplishment, dude. It's great.
Yeah, and it's also it's so like soul satisfying for you as an individual if you live in the moments. I think what happened to me, especially during COVID, was you started looking back into some of the things you achieved and done, and the life that you've had as a comedian, and you realize you didn't live in a lot of those moments. I'm not sure yourself. So you guys, like when you look back, so many great things happened to you, and you actually didn't live in that moment. You kind of just assume this is how it goes. This is how life.
I still can't believe I was paid so much money when I was on radio to just do 3 hours and go straight home afterwards, and then like money was just not something I thought about until we started this business, and you realize how difficult it is to not only find enough money to keep the place going and to pay the people who work with you, but also to then be able to just take a little bit home for yourself. And it's fucking hard. It's difficult compared to just being paid, which is what I was so used to. And I wasn't living in the moment. I was like, I'm on radio, I'm on television. This could carry on forever. I'm having a lot of fun. You're famous just by virtue of being on those two mediums. And you take a whole lot for granted. Also, you're meeting people every weekend. I was doing DJing around the country, and the network of people I was exposed to and the variety of age, everyone from like 18 to 80. And I tried to live in the moment. I tried to take it all in, but there was a part of that it was kind of life happening. And I was always thinking about tomorrow rather than right now. And I think COVID helped a lot of us to deal with that. But can I say on the COVID front, there was a letter sent out by the Minister of Health to all the provincial ministers and the deputy ministers and so on yesterday about just scrapping all of this legislation. Now, I mean, to me, and we don't have to talk about this for a long time because I think everyone is sick to death of COVID. But let's just get rid of this shit. It should have been given up 6 months ago. I don't know why we're bothering with these masks. If you'll admit that masks don't work now, you have to admit that they've never worked. And if they've never worked, why did you put people through this? I go through the shops now, and I see people. I don't see all of the people because you can't see whether they're smiling. You can't smile back at them. You can tell a little bit by the eyes, but I think we've missed out, and I feel sorry for children who've been learning to read and to speak at school without being able to see their teachers' mouths. It's a very hard thing to do. Hey, if you're deaf, then you've had the worst 2.5 years ever because you've had to lip read without being able to read lips, especially if you're young. And you think about all the jobs that have been lost. And you think about all these just destructive government decisions that have been made over the last 2.5 years. I know they will claim, and this is the only reason they won't go to jail, more's the pity on that front. They will claim, oh no, we tried to save lives, but they didn't demonstrably save a single life by their stupid rules. And we're now sitting here 2.5 years later, and they're still buggering around with laws like masks and sanitizers. And I said in the office yesterday, you remember when those people who used to go down the aisle with a trolley in the plane, remember when those people were there to serve you a drink or give you a snack? That was their whole job. And then suddenly they became these really important bureaucrats in the sky who could have you offloaded from a plane if you didn't pull your mask over your nose. And suddenly they felt powerful. And I'm not having a go at cabin crew because I know they've got a job just like everyone else. But all these little people, the guy at the shop, the person at the gym entrance who says to you, "I'm saying, can you please put on your mask?" You're like, you were probably once a nice person. But now this is your thing, and this gives you power, and now suddenly in charge of stuff that you shouldn't be in charge of. And it's
such a jump person.
Well, I mean, like you think about these neighbors who, in the beginning of COVID, were like ratting each other out for jogging in their own garden, and you're like, what kind of madness took hold of us at that point? And there's still some people who are stuck in that madness. Hey, there's still some people who are attached to it in a big way. There's some people who just don't want to let go of the masks. They don't want to go back to normal because this has made them feel a little bit safer or a little bit more anonymous or whatever their thing is that it did for them. It's fucked up, man. I've had enough of it. Let's end the stuff now.
I got some friends a couple who haven't come out since the pandemic started, and they stay at home. And they're
still your friends?
Well, that's a good question because you kind of the thing about friendship is it's weird because I don't know, Gareth, like there's probably people you call friends you haven't spoken to in 5 years or 2 years. You kind of pick it up where you left off. But that's something I like also discussing with myself is like you have these people that they're your friends because they've always been your friends, but are they really your friends? Because if you need to do something, can you do it with them? You know what I'm saying? That's what friends are like.
Right, exactly.
So we all kind of have friends that are almost like just friends because they've always been friends, almost like family. They're just family because they've been family. And like friends is something you can still like choose and stuff. But so they are kind of those friends you hold on to because they're part of your life story. But are they like your actual everyday friends? You go to a list of who you're gonna call to hang out this weekend, and they're your friends, but you're not gonna call them. It's weird.
No, and also it's gonna be weird for them because they've become desocialized, if that's even a word. I mean, Simphiwe, you were in the office. You were in the office yesterday when I ran in there. I was like, guys, we don't have to wear masks anymore. And like there was a half response. Like half the people were like, inside. They didn't say it. Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not criticizing either side because I understand that there are people who have been really worried or who have lost family members or lost friends or whatever. There's some serious stuff that happened over the last 2.5 years. But the masks had fuck all to do with anyone life being saved. Did nothing for anybody. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, here's a comment from someone who's listening to us now. This is just unbelievable. So apparently this is on the cruise ships. What they did there is they forced the crew to wear masks, but the passengers didn't have to. Like that has got nothing to do here. Peter John says, I work on cruise ships. Our guests don't wear masks, but the crew do. Think about that for a second. And you saw this, I remember at the Met Gala last year.
Yeah.
You had all these celebrities and all these rich and famous and powerful people walking around with these fancy dresses and fancy outfits on and kissing each other in the air and like kissing each other on the hand and in the face and all that stuff. But then you saw in the background like the waiters and waitresses with their masks on, and you're like, oh, I see what this is. This has never been about a disease. This is all about control and deciding how important you are on the scale. If you're really important, you don't have to wear a mask. Remember all those politicians who went to have their hair cut while it was illegal? Those politicians who carried on having parties, did whatever they wanted. Boris Johnson famously did this at number 10. Nancy Pelosi went for a haircut. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, he went and had dinner with a whole bunch of his friends, including a whole bunch of people who were his health advisors. And none of them had masks on, but all the waiters had to wear masks. So that's what it was.
It's the same here. If you go to a restaurant, just look around. All the waiters are wearing, and everyone's like, the mask is like, it's like an entry. It's like a student card to enter the door. Once you get inside, it's like,
it's a waste of money.
It's a waste of money. And, Carvin, I'm looking at you and Simphiwe this morning, and I'm thinking about, the people who are listening to us, and without a smile. Like you walk into a restaurant, Keith says here, I own a couple of restaurants, and it's hell on earth, these masks. They've lost their smiles. I think people have to be taught again to smile and like how to interact normally with each other. You can tell so much about someone in the first few seconds. They say body language counts way more than words. If you can't see someone smile, it makes it very hard to build a relationship with them, even if it's in a meeting or any of that stuff. I mean, Simphiwe, you've been in a couple of meetings with us in the last week, and some of them are online, and we're doing some in person. And the online ones they're fine, but it's not as good as being in person.
Yeah. It's like looking at a screen and you're like, hi. I'm Simphiwe.
When you bump into people and you're like, hi.
Yeah.
Like, grab them. Like, oh,
right.
You put out your hand to shake or whatever, and then you feel like, oh my gosh. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and now you have to ask. Can I hug you? Do you handshake? Are we social distancing?
Yeah.
There's a whole intro. It's a whole intro.
Space Brother says Cliff Central, the only thing that the mask was good for was realizing how shit your own breath smelled.
It was an upside.
So
now
man,
you know.
Now you know. I like that. Masks are a waste of face, said Parallel Parking. That's beautiful. I'm gonna steal that if you don't mind, because that's a really good line. I like that. Dud says he was in Bali lately, and guests have no masks. Employees of hotels, restaurants, etc., are wearing masks. It's stupidity in the nth degree. He says, I'm just paraphrasing because there's some spelling things there. Dogoza says, wait, did I miss something here? Has the mask mandate been lifted? Not like we've been following it where I live. Well, it has been lifted. I mean, the Minister of Health has basically sent out a circular to say to all the deputy ministers and provincial ministers, look, we're gonna repeal all this legislation. It's over now. It's pretty much done. So it's really just a question of them dotting their I's and crossing their T's. But really, we should have stopped wearing these things, and we should have stopped following these dumb laws 6 months ago. And I think a little bit of civil disobedience, which South Africans are good at. We did it with e-tolls. We do it with.
We're not so good at it.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we as good as we think. I think COVID proved that we're actually very compliant. Let me tell you, when I was during looting, which was last year, the looting under, what I did realize was the police. So the police, for example, during the looting, kind of let things happen.
Yeah.
But then, as soon as like I would say, law-abiding citizens try to get to shops, they were very strict. Started policing people. Tanya, they were all over the road, and I realized that the police in South Africa are very good at policing law-abiding citizens. So they completely useless when it comes to people who don't want to obey the law.
Well, isn't that true for everything? I mean, that's like, the people who pay the taxes are the ones who follow the laws, and they get knocked for 6 with taxes. the people who don't bother to pay taxes, don't follow the law. No one cares about them. It seems that they get away scot-free. And I've always said you could be arrested in this country for dealing with weed, but you steal billions with the Guptas, and you can choose a house for yourself in Dubai.
Yeah, I think we need a little bit more. I suppose maybe I'm thinking, and sometimes we make the mistake of seeing the world through a middle class perspective. So I just feel sometimes like the middle class is very submissive to the laws and the government, and especially like maybe it's also where I live. You know what I'm saying? I don't see a lot of spirit of protest in that group, within that middle class group, who would have a much bigger voice because they do pay a lot of tax, and you know what I'm saying. That for me, like
I mean, listen, no one stands up for the middle class. So we're talking about them. So maybe we're the first people to do this, because what happens is you've got a whole bunch of people who are poor and no one cares about them, and they call them the working class, but in this country they're unemployed, so they're the unworking class. And you get people in the middle class and in academia and in politics who claim to speak on their behalf, but they don't actually, which is, it's like one of the most horrible things you can hear is when someone's like, well, you know, as and they almost speak as if they've got a mandate, like some group of poor people got together and gave them a piece of paper and said, here, speak on our behalf. Because they never actually ask poor people on the TV. They always ask some representative of an NGO who claims to be the person who speaks for the poor people. And then you've got the rich people who don't care because they can afford everything no matter what happens. You know, if the shares in the stocks or Bitcoin or someone's savings gets obliterated, they don't care. They've got plenty of hard cash to deal with. So no one needs to worry about the rich people. The middle classes are like the ones who keep the wheels turning. They're the ones who have to go to work every day. They're the ones who have to pay. They're the ones who have to put their kids through school. The ones who have to, you know, keep the engine of the economy and all of the services in this country going. So I think it's right to look at them. And we were talking about this on Friday, and I'll reiterate it because I think it's interesting. They say about 30% of the people, they've done research around this, about 30% of the people are compliant and will do whatever they're told. Another 30% of people will rebel. So it's interesting, exactly half and half. And maybe sometimes the rebellious ones get heard more than the compliant ones. And sometimes they specifically drown out the rebellious ones, so the compliant ones sound like they're in the majority. But then that leaves 40% of people in the middle who need to be convinced. And I think a lot of people fall into that category. And it's taken those people, sometimes it took them like a couple of months. And I've got friends who admit that they changed their mind from those first weeks of COVID when we were all scared. We were all like, ooh, I wonder how bad this is.
For me, Gareth, I was on I work on the cruise ship from time to time. Like I'll go in for like 2 weeks and just do some shows. And I think it was end of Jan. I came off in 2020. I came off the ship, and when I came off, they were doing temperature checks, and I was like, so weird. Because remember January, end of January, why were they doing temperature checks? And it already kind of started the fear that this new world. I remember feeling at that point in time that like something's happening, that we just. They're not exactly saying how widespread, but something's going on. And now, as it unfolded, you start thinking to yourself. Of course, I think a lot of us are confused in that early, like 2021, about how will this go. So we're listening to everything. We're listening to every bit of information that comes out of the government, and you start trusting. And then they put like, you know, they had like the health minister, and then everyone was so confident. The health minister's a doctor. So lucky to have a health minister.
And then we found out.
That was the biggest scammy ever.
We find out about digital vibes and how the guys actually have PPE money. Son of a bitch.
Even some of the things he was saying as a medical whatever professional, I was just like, what is this? Like, is he just making this stuff up?
Well,
stuff was made up.
we need to go over this territory because I still think that there's a lot that needs to be accounted for. Some people made decisions, powerful people in South Africa and the world, and really our guys didn't lead the charge by any means. They just followed what everyone else in the world was doing, and that's no excuse because every country needs its own set of solutions. And I still think the world owes us a debt of gratitude for coming up with the Omicron variant because that's kind of what's immunized so many people. And what has made COVID a whole lot less dangerous. So,
For sure.
the rest of the world should be saying thank you, South Africa, for starters. And then we should be putting some people in jail. People who took PPE money, people who were on medical advisory panels when they weren't giving medical advice. It was more about control and establishing dumb rules. Do you remember Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and her anti-tobacco drive during COVID? And the High Court found just the other day that there was no sensible reason to have banned smoking in South Africa other than to have made illegal cigarettes a serious business again. That's all. And she is not accounted for that. That there needs to be payment. She needs to be sued in her personal capacity for having made a terrible, stupid decision which had nothing to do with people's health and using the pandemic as an excuse. And everywhere in the world that people use the pandemic as an excuse, those people must be held to account. Their feet must be held close to the fire. We must find out what kind of people they really are, because the danger is they'll do it again. They'll use some other excuse to make us do stupid shit like, I don't know, walk around in shoes that are closed. Remember when they told us you couldn't go to the shops in like slops or Crocs because you would have. You
can
remember
buy
that shit?
Woolies chicken. Yeah. You can buy chicken. You can buy pies. You can. You can buy snacks. You couldn't just buy anything. They were just like, oh,
yeah,
you have to be healthy. Oh gosh.
I mean, these people are not going to be held to account, I'm afraid, and they're just going to get away with it. So they'll do it again. Next time they'll use some other excuse, monkeypox, or God knows what they're going to come up with. But we need to have these people held responsible. And I hate to sound like a broken record because I know everybody's sick of talking about this stuff. But, people like Anthony Fauci, who at the beginning of this was saying, oh, you don't have to wear masks. And he was like,
a bad impersonation.
I know, it's horrible. But he was telling us explicitly not to use masks, and he was lying to us because at that stage they needed to keep the masks for the doctors. So instead of telling us the truth, he said, don't worry about the masks, it's fine. Now, of course, we found out not only was he giving us bad advice on that front, but he was trying to stop us from seeking certain kinds of medication which might have helped. He was also acting on the political whims of his friends in politics. Those people cannot be trusted ever again. Zweli Mkhize, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma here in South Africa, Anthony Fauci over there, the politicians. They love this stuff, and they've made fools out of themselves because all that's happened now is we trust them a whole lot less. Now,
we don't trust them at all.
No, exactly. I mean, all of us, ordinary people who, hey, listen, at the beginning of COVID, I was like, all right, let's do this. Remember 2 weeks to flatten the curve shit. I was like, I'm in a lockdown. I'm not going to see family or friends or any of that. By week 3, I was like, this is bullshit. There's no way.
The thing is, when you say we don't trust them, again, like, guys, like,
there are people who do.
Some way we don't represent the real South Africa who might very well see Zweli Mkhize back in government and even going for the presidency, despite what. And like, sometimes I always have to pull myself back and think, oh God, when I say, like, I feel to myself, I say something and think to myself, well, Carvin, are you like, is this the voice of South Africa? Because when it comes to the polls, especially in this country,
but you can
our voice is not like
again,
of the majority of South Africa.
Not voting.
But let me put you at ease on this one, because you can't speak on behalf of someone else. You can only speak on your own behalf. I think the most dangerous thing people do is when they start to claim someone else's voice as part of their own. You're like, I speak on behalf of lesbian women in wheelchairs. No, you don't. You couldn't get 10 signatures of lesbian women in wheelchairs if you wanted to. And then you get people who like, I speak on behalf of black people or white people or poor people or old people or young people or rich people or whatever. No, you don't. You speak only for yourself. And it's important that we all listen to each other. But I don't think a lot of people listen. I think a lot of people claim to have agency that they don't have. They won't say me, but they'll try to make it sound like they've got way more authority because they've got a whole bunch of people they speak on behalf of. And this is what politicians have done for years. They're like, I represent my constituents. No, you don't. 12% of them voted for you. They had a by-election in Soweto the other day, which Pumi and I were talking about. And Pumi went through the detailed breakdown. Like 12%, 12% of the people in that ward of Soweto that had that by-election voted for the winning candidate. 12%. That is not a mandate of any kind.
Yeah, that's true.
That's like you that's like you invite 13 of your friends to a party, and all of them say it's cold, but you say it's hot. So you want to turn on the aircon, they want to start a fire. That's not a good representation. You can't speak on behalf of other people, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I suppose with the politics, because of the system, the way democracy lays, we don't have a way around that. So the majority, whoever gets the majority wins, whether that majority is a small majority, the way that it lays. So I don't know how we fix that, because one of the problems we have in South Africa, and I covered a few elections while I was a journalist, and I was a local government reporter for the Mercury newspaper, and I'd lost complete faith in the system. I lost complete faith as a young man.
Yeah.
I would sit in those meetings, in those council meetings, and realize that the politics of majority means that, like, and this is like a real example. I'd be in that meeting, and let's say the IFP in catering or the DA come up with a great suggestion, and the majority party in eThekwini ANC could just blow it off purely because it came from the opposition side, and that would be that. Like, even no matter if it helped the majority of the people in the city or not, it just came from the wrong side, and that's the point of this majority politics, is that we are all basically now at the whim of the majority parties.
No, this is true. I spoke to two women last night who were in that KwaZulu-Bantu cult. You know, that one in KwaZulu-Natal. I'm sure you've heard about it.
Whoa. Like, let me just tell you something. I come from a very conservative Pentecostal background, like growing up. Where we grew up, KwaZulu-Bantu was like a place you go to get your life straight. So
yes.
It was like, he's not doing well. I think he needs to go to KwaZulu-Bantu to come clean. So when the story came out, my parents lived in England for 24 years, and they were the ones who kind of, like, the religion of your home until you're old enough is kind of dictated by your parents, and then you get old and you're like, I don't think it was all right, but so I said to him, this KwaZulu-Bantu stuff. I was like, this is the thing that, like, you guys is a go-to. Can you see what's happening?
Well, I spoke to these two women, and it sounded to me like the way they were talking about it, and they both had very different experiences, Erica and Kelimpilo, and they were telling me their story, which is harrowing, and you'll hear the interview next week. But the worst part of it was how the people in charge at this KwaZulu-Bantu, and by the way, they're the guys who sell Aquila water as well.
Yeah.
Those guys, what they do is they maintain control over you by punishing you for things that are tiny transgressions of, like, canon law, religious law. And they beat you in public, and they do things like that. And the whole point of all of that is not to turn you into a righteous human being or to actually mete out justice. The point of it is to maintain control. And someone in the comments said something just now, which I thought is spot on. And that is that all of this was about punishing people. It's the oldest trick in the book, says Peter John. The third world always was and always has been a petri dish for the elites. In South Africa, we like to think we're part of the former, but we are not. They like to punish us because then they make you feel like you are sick and you need to be well, even though you're fine. There are lots of South Africans who are going about their business today. And I wish you'd, like, if this is your story, go about your business today, try to earn your money, try to do the best job you can. Honest, good people. I think the majority of South Africans, again, I can only divine this from the way that people behave. There are going to be people today who pay more to get to their job than it's worth because transport's so expensive for them. There are people who live in cold and miserable conditions, especially in the middle of winter, and are still getting up to make sure that their kids get to school, and getting up to make sure that they can put food on the table tonight those are good people, and that's the majority of South Africans. They're not sitting there in their asses trying to be useless. No one wakes up in the morning and goes, today I'm going to be as useless as I possibly can be, and feels good about that by day 10. You know, even if you are the kind of person who works really hard and you want to break, after 10 days of that, you feel like you need a purpose in your life. And I look at this stuff and I think, here for 2.5 years, we've been messed around. We've been treated really badly. Enough now. End these stupid regulations. Let's start taking each other seriously again. And let's take the people who we gave these jobs of huge responsibility, let's take them a whole lot less seriously. Because I think in the last couple of months, we've learned this. I mean, there are lots of interesting comments here. And I want to get to as many of them as possible, but we've got to get to headlines too. Lindin Tuli says, who's holding China and the WHO accountable for withholding information about the coronavirus when the outbreak started in 2019? Well, remember, you could have been banned from social media if you mentioned the Wuhan lab. Remember? You were?
Yes.
I was. Yeah, I was so upset because my page was choked, and I don't have a lot of followers, but it was a significant outlet for me, and so I was doing these conversations on my page, and I did this piece on ivermectin, and it wasn't a piece that was saying ivermectin is right or wrong. It was actually a piece that I was taking two different people within SAPRA who were saying two different things, and I was like basically saying, so who do we believe? SAPRA talking about whether ivermectin is useful, one person saying whether it's not useful, and one saying, well, it's still going through the testing, so it can't be not useful if it hasn't been through the testing. Kind of that was the crux of it, and they kind of squeezed my page, and so they took it out, they gave me a strike, and I was like, and then as stories come up about studies, and I had looked into studies before I even entered the piece to say that I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying there's a conversation to be had.
Right, but you weren't even allowed to have this. You weren't even allowed to have those conversations, right? Because you were spreading, what did they call it? Misinformation or disinformation? I can never tell the difference between the two.
And in my case, the information was literally just, I wasn't even putting my own opinion in it. It was two clips played from different news stations, the same organization saying different things. And then what happened was I was going to have this conversation with my parents about being vaccinated, because they're in England, so they got vaccinated before us. They were that first round. So I set up the thing. Before I went live, they cut it because it had a conversation about vaccination. And it was so weird, because in some ways it kind of suited the agenda because my parents got vaccinated. But they were just sick. And my page is never recovered. I used to be 100,000, 200,000 views per video. I dwindle now in the 3,000 to 10,000 range ever since. It's like they just identified it as a misinformation page, and they throttled it.
And they probably, whoever made those decisions probably doesn't even know who the hell you are, but they saw that they saw the word ivermectin, and they were like, oh, he must be one of these right-wing people, so we're just going to shadow ban him. So we're going to send less traffic to his site. That's what happened. Happened to a lot of people. By the way, have you seen any change? I don't go on Twitter much, but have you noticed any change on your social media since either the end of the pandemic, which has been a slow and gradual thing, or since all that Elon Musk noise about Twitter? Because a lot of people saw their following go up or down by quite a lot when all of that happened.
So I
haven't seen a change.
I've never had one. I actually had it for, I think, 2 days, and I posted something, and someone on Twitter said, so what you're trying to say is, and I said, whoa, is this person? That's what I'm saying. So what you actually said, and I deleted it immediately. I was like, nah, I don't need that. I don't need to be reinterpreted on Twitter all the time. It's only 140 characters. So I've literally had it for a short while and then gone. I was like, nah, I don't need that. And that's 8 years ago. I was like, psh. So whenever I put it, I missed all of it, and I don't feel like I've missed anything.
No, you haven't. There's still no edit button, so you haven't missed anything. People are they're still useless human beings, so you have not missed anything.
Yeah, man. And people always say to me, well, how can you not have Twitter? I'm like, you know what? I don't know if it would make me more popular, but I don't think it would make me happier, if that makes sense.
Definitely not. one of the best things you could do is just give yourself a diet of social media. Don't eat it all, because you're just going to get unhealthy and unfit mentally and emotionally.
And my phone got stolen in December. A weird thing, like this is a scam. I'm talking about a scam just now that happened to us this week. But in December, I parked my car at a petrol station, and there's a scam where they click before you lock your car, they pull the door. So there was a car next to me, but I didn't think anything about it.
Yeah.
And I went to the shop, I came out to look for my phone, it was gone. Something I realized, oh shucks. And the car next to me was gone. And then I've contacted the garage, and they were like, oh, they're so sorry. They heard that this has been happening. But anyway, besides the points, they took the phone, and then I got like a Google Authenticator on my Facebook entry and all that stuff. And basically, I hadn't backed up that Google Authenticator code, the 2-factor. And so Facebook won't let me back in my page. So I'm completely locked out of my personal profile. So,
you have been going through it.
But,
like, first they like your account. No, now you've been hacked. It's like you've been going.
Had Facebook since December, and I will not like put any effort in to get it back. I got a fan page that I access through my wife's page because she was a manager on my page, and if I need to post or say something, I say it. But like, I don't have to like see all my friends, what they're doing, and I'm not really that interested. And it's so cool, bro. Like no Twitter, really no Facebook feed. It's like a new world because in some ways we've been in a new. Yes, a phrase. We've been in a new normal since 2006, since we adopted social media as a way of living. Right? We adopted social media as this is how you interact. This is how you get around. This is the way the world works. And then I don't have Twitter, and then I lose the Facebook, which is my only like real point of access to the public and unto my friends. And then for like the last 6 months, I don't hear from them.
Right.
Social media, and brah, I feel like
life been peaceful.
This is how life is supposed to be.
Absolutely, but it took a thief at the garage to teach you that. So maybe it's there's a lesson in everything, right?
I was telling Simphiwe before you get the headlines. I was telling Simphiwe yesterday. We were chatting about it. We had a weird scam on public holidays. On public holiday, Tuesday, my wife, I live in Hillcrest, and she went to the Bluff for the day to do some stuff, and she calls me and she says to me, "Are you busy doing something to my phone?" I was like, "No." And then I go look and then we realized basically that they stole her phone number. Like, so someone stole her phone number. Like, you don't think about someone stealing your phone number, but you've probably covered this before. But for us, this was like they SIM swapped her number and ported it to a new SIM card. And so her phone went dead. No, and she said there was a message, but she was so busy with what she was doing, she didn't look at her phone. There was a message saying your number has been ported. If this is a fraud or whatever, click yes or click in or whatever. And she didn't see that message till 3 hours later, until she tried to get on her phone, no signal, and she used someone else's phone to call me. And I said, no, it's not me. And then we kind of realized, and then we couldn't. So there's no way to stop it, right? And then what they did is they hacked into her WhatsApp, because most WhatsApps don't have any protection on it. So once they got your number, they just re-download the WhatsApp on the new number. Right. And started messaging everyone in the group she's in. Like, hey, I'm stuck at the bank. Got no money. Please send me 1.5. And which is a weird message.
Oh my God.
And then this is the craziest part of it. We couldn't get through. So I've done some work for Vodacom. She's with Vodacom. So I called some people I knew, and they got it stopped immediately. So I was like, okay. Yeah. I said, you can down and stop. And then an hour later, there's more messages coming to me. Hey, I'm still waiting for the money. You haven't sent it from her WhatsApp number.
Oh my God.
And then they're like, oh, there's nothing they can do about that, because WhatsApp is it's separate from the phone number in some senses. So once it's activated on a card, it can still work. You have to get the card SIM swap back. Now, we don't think about the OTP, everything.
You can't do that. You can't do that unless you have the SIM card, and obviously no criminal is just going to hand that over to you. So she now has to hope that none of her friends are dumb enough to fall for this and try to help her at the bank.
Yeah, but fortunately, a lot of but the thing was, they started there's no context when you go into WhatsApp. The only thing they have is the groups that you were in. You get added back in those groups. So they go through the groups. It's like my daughter's like school groups, like karate, kids parties. So they started asking random people, "Hey, I need 1.5."
Now she's like, that woman. She's that woman that's asking for money in the school group chat. Like, hey, bro, pay your school fees, dude. Why are you asking us for money? Like,
I'm married for the second time. So that's my daughter. So even though she's in those parent groups, those parents don't really know her. So if someone messaged me, Carvin, is your wife asking for money? Like,
yeah.
Is everything okay? You know how they are. Is everything okay? Are you guys holding up?
Fortunately for her, other of her friends know that she's a doctor, so people know that she doesn't really like look for money. but still. And then
now you know the chats that they're having in their homes. Oh, you know that doctor, she doesn't know how to handle that money, hey? She makes so much money, but she's asking me.
Yeah, they killed us. They made so much money of COVID and they still asking for money.
I think it's ironic that we bring poor Yaku in every time we end up talking about fraud, because, I mean, he was even discussing some of this stuff on his show just yesterday. But Yaku Voigt is, of course, the CEO of Catalytic, and he has his own show on a Tuesday morning. How are you doing, Yaku? You good?
Good morning. Yeah, very well.
I don't know if you heard any of that, but Carvin was just talking about how when your phone gets stolen, they can get into your old WhatsApp groups, which is something I hadn't thought about at all. And his wife had her phone stolen, and then these criminals were trying to like get money out of her school groups and the mom groups that she's on. I mean, this is just another level of what you talk about so often on your show when it comes to like fraud and internet security and all of that shit, right?
Yako,
exactly
before you start, Yako, one more thing, Gareth. We went to Vodacom. Yako, just listen to this. We went to Vodacom and we had the number flagged for fraud on the next day, on the 17th, right? So flagged for fraud. They said the number's been flagged for fraud. We'll do a swap back to you. You can have your number back. We got the number back. The next day, they reversed. The scammers or whoever reversed what we had gone in person to do. So she came to Vodacom in person with her ID and proof of address, and they reversed over the phone through a call center what we had done in person and sent it back to them, sent ported the number back to the scammer's SIM card.
How does that happen?
So it's quite interesting. I wonder, like normally when you go to the mall, you see all of those cell phone shops full of people, and I always wonder what they go and do there. It's probably that. Because why else would you go there? It's the worst.
That's us. You know, we spent a whole June 16th and day after in like there was a holiday week. My wife asked me on Sunday, "What did we do this holiday?" I said we were at Vodacom.
Literally, yeah.
We were literally at Vodacom. That's what we did this holiday.
If you go to the mall where Simphiwe and I go to, which is here in Midrand, it always amazes me that you can go past the Vodacom or Telkom Mobile or MTN. The shop is always full of people, and I always wonder what do they go do there, and then you can stand there for hours.
You know that everything we do is so connected to this now, and I just think about it. And it's worth saying again because I mentioned this 2 weeks ago when it happened to a friend of mine. Now we've got your wife's story, Carvin. But yes, if you don't back this stuff up, and if you don't have what could happen if you lose your phone, if it's stolen from you, you could lose everything: your bank details, your investment stuff, your personal information, everything.
All your OTPs go there.
How come these scammers are so good at this stuff too? I mean, you know, you would think that these are unsophisticated people, but my God, they're better than any of us at hacking, at getting the information out of the phone, at switching it on, even if it's been blacklisted. I mean, all these things that they tell you that will happen when your phone gets stolen. It seems that these criminals are way cleverer than the people who made the phones.
Well, Gareth, if you think, what do you spend your time on? You spend your time on your craft to obviously live out your passion and make money.
Sure.
And for these scammers, it's big money. You know, it's very, very simple. And you've got scale because there's a lot of people that obviously have phones. So yeah, it's money. It's a business, and I think that's the way that people must think about it. Now I sound like a broken record about it, where every week in the show we talk about there's no business that's too small to be a target of people like that. And we just need to take it a lot more seriously. It's actually interesting. I was watching an article, looking at an article this morning where ShopRite is under ransomware threat at the moment. So and I mean those guys spend millions on security. So it can happen. It can literally happen to anybody.
But Yako, no, I'm not giving the scammers the credit in this case, and you can help me, Yako, because the scam they pull of SIM swapping is piss easy to do. Yeah. SIM cards have no protection. The technology of SIM cards hasn't been improved in 20 years. So this thing that happened to us is happening all over the world. So they basically, all they needed was information that wherever they got from, whether it's from the TransUnion leak or whatever.
I just want to throw this in here. Why do we spend so much of our time feeking and rekeying and making sure that all our information is up to date? We have to fill in forms every time we do anything, including getting a new phone. And it seems that it's useless to us and it's useful to all the bad people. Isn't that annoying?
Because the phone, no matter how much protection you have on the phone, there's nothing you can do about the phone, the process, the Vodacom or whatever, when someone calls in. That's security outside of every individual's control, Yako. Like, how do we around that?
I don't know. I mean, with the risk of pointing fingers at Vodacom, I mean, there's got to be some form of collaboration or something between the scammers and somebody inside. Like, I mean, I think if you try and go and do a SIM swap on a legitimate account, you'll probably find it's not that easy. It's like Gareth says, you probably have to fill in 100 forms. Yeah. So I think there's got to be some form of collaboration.
Inside, there's some crook on the inside who's helping them. Sure.
Scary, guys, like scary. That's because whether you're dealing with F&B or you're dealing with Vodacom, you have got all your personal information in the hands of people who are poorly paid in call centers or wherever. Like, that means that we all at risk here, because those people then, if you're saying that it could be an inside job, does that mean that we all at risk of, like, at some point someone inside saying, you know what, there might be a little buck to make on the side from giving this person access to this person's number?
Well, you were talking about Twitter earlier. I saw there's I think she's a doctor in Durban, actually, Corin Marrow or something like that. She posted on Twitter last night, a friend of hers phones got stolen in KZN somewhere, and people took they then unlocked the phone and transferred 70,000 rand out of a net bank account and applied for a personal loan. So I mean, it can be really scary.
If you think about it, if you had 70,000 rand in cash, you would lock that away somewhere safe. You certainly wouldn't put it in your pocket and drive around and take it to the shops with you and be on it while you're at the traffic lights. And you
never wonder lots of it. Yes. You wouldn't let go. You put all the money in your pocket, walk around the wood.
Unbelievable, huh?
There's a reason why Cyril had all that money in the sofa, Gareth. There's a reason.
Cyril, exactly.
I was about to say, now, where would you put it away? Because apparently your sofa is not an option anymore.
Listen,
or your mattress.
This is actually a really good question. Like, if you had to hide cash, let's say a briefcase full of money, which could be R1 million, right? I mean, R1 million isn't that much when you actually squeeze the notes together and put elastic around them. You could put that in a briefcase, R1 million. If you had to hide that, and don't give away any of your actual hiding places here, but where the hell would you even put it? Cyril sewed it into a sofa or put it in the sofa cushions. Where would you put it?
Wow.
So, Gareth, I have the perfect answer for you. You see that beautiful bookcase that you have right behind you? That's where I would stash it. Like, every book would have, the money. Because nobody reads, nobody attacks the books. Even robbers, when they come in, I promise you, the thing that they never take is books. They always leave books behind. They will take the sofa, they will take the TV, they'll take your laptop, they'll take cables, for crying out loud. But books, guys, they always leave books behind. Even in fact, the Bible, to be exact, get different versions.
Bible.
I promise you, no
That'll
one
keep
messes
them
with the
nice,
Bible. They'll keep them away.
But you're going to have a lot of Bibles for $1 million, Sims.
Yes,
exactly.
There's new King James version. There's the young woman's what. There's so many versions of the Bible. Get it in Latin. Get it there. It's done. I promise you, no one's taking that money.
Yeah, but doesn't Gareth's bookcase look like one of those ones in the movies where you pull one book and that whole thing flips?
Oh, yeah.
It does look like one of those.
I do think that's not a bad answer though, Simphiwe. I mean, that could be a very good plan. I just want to let Yaku, before he goes, because we've got like 4 minutes here. I just want to talk about data centers, because this is also something you've been exploring on your show. So just quickly give us some insight into what data centers are and why they're important, and perhaps give us a little taste of what you're going to be talking about on the show next week as well.
So Gareth, I actually want to. I sound like a broken record all of the time. Last night here in Midrand, where I stay, Sims, I got home after 6, and the power was off, and Anita and I decided, well, we've got nothing to do, so let's go for a run. And I was surprised by the amount of generators that everybody had here. So because and then. What's also fascinating is everybody that's got a generator, they don't have one light on in their house. It's literally every light in their house is on. And the reason why I find it so interesting is because when load shedding resumed this week, everybody says load shedding is back, but it's here, it's with us, and we know it's going to be here for quite a long time. So we had a discussion on my podcast yesterday, specifically about the fact, similar to what we spoke about now about security, where smaller businesses tend to think their data centers are not really for them. It's a big business type scenario, and we firmly believe that taking into account physical security, plus then the fact that we know that load shedding, we're going through a difficult time, that everybody should have access to data center services. And that's our focus for the probably until the end of July, where we're just going to preach everybody must go into a data center, and then we remove all of those problems around physical security. What do you do when they break in and steal all of your equipment, and how do you deal with power outages and filling up generators and all of those kind of things. So for the next like I said, until the end of July, that's what we're focusing on. Every business that we're talking to, we want you in a data center. We don't want you to host stuff at your premises, because it's just not efficient and easy. It's difficult.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, the cloud is now an old topic of discussion, but everybody kind of understands what that is. And you can upload and download as you need to from the office, but why have all of your information actually stored on a hard drive at the office? It's ridiculous. Then you're asking for trouble.
There's still so much of that, and specifically in the smaller businesses. I mean, I had a customer this week where if I had to show you a photo of what their computer cabinet looks like, you'd have a heart attack. And every time somebody just gets close to that, something goes off. So, and it's not their core business, but it causes so much anxiousness, because the business goes and stands still when that thing doesn't work. So that's our focus for the month. And Gareth, maybe I was thinking about it. Anybody that sends us a mail to letsconnect@catalytic.co.za to inquire about our. So we've got an SME offering from as little as 2,000 Rand a month for the space, the power, unlimited internet. That's let's call it a special offer that we're running now. So anybody that sends a mail to letsconnect@catalytic.co.za stands a chance to get a year's free worth hosting just by doing that.
All right, then just give us that email address one more time, because people they only remember on the third try.
Okay, it's letsconnect@catalytic.co.za, and then just send us a mail and say, I want to know more about your data center services.
Sure.
And you can get you get the chance to get a year's free worth of hosting.
Absolutely awesome. Thank you, Yaku. Always nice to see you. We'll catch you next Tuesday.
Thank you very much. Nice chatting to all of you.
Very nice, man. Jaco Voigt, the CEO of Catalytic. We've got Carvin Goldstone with us this morning, Simphiwe Mtatwa, me and you, and we will be back in just a moment at 7 o'clock. cliffcentral.com, live on this Wednesday morning. Hope your day's going beautifully so far. If it isn't, we'll try to fix it in the next hour.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Okay, so car pricing, are we more expensive?
So are we more expensive? I'm not going into the detail, but essentially, I'm going to do a top 10 list of, the most expensive to the least expensive countries to buy one car. So an independent study was done by the Telegraph in the UK, and they basically took one vehicle and they went around the world to see how much you would be paying if you bought this car. And, what's the difference? And, they kind of took things into consideration, like inflation and tax and yada, 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 all the little details and, when you're buying a car.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Suffer from collectivism?
I started collecting when I was about 8 years old.
Do you have an obsession with objects?
I sort of got into collecting TV cars.
Are you a fanatic? A devotee? Are you someone exhibiting enthusiasm or strong passion?
When lockdown hits, when everyone was kind of bored at home, they started Googling, like, what are these things worth these days?
Cliff Central dispenses a weekly dose of collectomania. Join me as I talk to compulsive collectors. Fascinating.
The frame's total value is probably about 12,000 rand.
Possibly a little weird.
I developed this infatuation with the Statue of Liberty.
Collectomania, Mondays on the Gareth Cliff Show. Brought to you by SA Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop. Yes, indeed. If you've got someone in your life or you yourself are a collector, then tell us about it. We want to know about it in Collectomania. We've heard some fascinating people over the last couple of months telling us about these incredible collections that they have. Everything from like the ridiculous stuff to the very, very valuable stuff. And we want to know all about what you collect. So tell us. You can send us an email, contact@cliffcentral.com. We are joined this morning by Carvin Goldstone, comedian, former journalist, a man who is who's not only making it but winning awards at the same time. It's good to have you with us, man. And Wednesday morning, you're in KZN. I just want to quickly refer to that because I've got friends who are down there as well. I mean, you guys really have had the shittiest time over the last 2.5 years. There's been COVID, then there was riots, then there was the first series of floods, then there was another series of floods after that. I mean, have you thought about moving?
Yeah. When KZN is turning into that family member that no one wants to take calls from anymore.
Yeah.
Because we've always got a problem. That family member that calls and you don't want to answer because there's something happened again. Hi. Yes, we saw you got a problem. You need more bread. What happened to the bread from looting? Why didn't you freeze it?
It's funny. A friend of mine was saying the other day, and I know this is like first world problems by comparison, but a friend of mine was saying, oh, he was keen to go down to KZN, maybe towards the last half of the year, and take like a week's break because it's cheaper than going overseas or going to the Cape or any of that stuff. You think it's cheaper, but then obviously petrol now is way more expensive, and the toll gates and all of that stuff. But he's got a friend who's got a place there, and I said to him, "Are you sure you want to go? Because there's still a lot that has to be fixed." And I wasn't like trying to knock KZN. I love the place, and I go there as often as I can. But things are not 100% yet, and you're not going to have as much of a holiday as you think. You're probably going to spend most of your time just scavenging and scrounging and trying to keep things sort of organized. How bad is it really? I mean, am I putting people off for no good reason?
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've lived in KZN in Durban my whole life. I'm 38, so like 38 years I've been here.
Right.
My parents left South Africa 20 odd years ago. So I was like 16 when my mother left, and my father left when I was 18 or 19. And I stayed. Usually it's the other way around. Usually kids
right.
And let me just say, I went to London where they are, and I was there for, I worked for Britain. I kind of hung around for a few months, and I was like, nah, I'll go back to South Africa. You guys have fun. And I've never felt like I needed to leave or live anywhere else. And except like certain countries I go and I'll be like, oh, this is nice. Especially the thing of walking around, not being scared you're going to be robbed. It's like a bit of a mind. Everyone doesn't like feel scared. But let me just say this. I was looking at my insurance claims for the last years, and every 2-3 years, there's a storm damage insurance claim. So there's definitely a consistent pattern developing. And, we'll only be able to tell over a period of I suppose another 10 or so years if this pattern is a real thing. But there's definitely a pattern where every 2-3 years we have extreme damage from flooding and from storms, like roof damage and stuff. So, like, long term, I don't know if KZN makes a lot of sense to me with the amount of rebuilding that you always have to do. I was on a flight to Cape Town with a guy who, he knew me from comedy, but I met him for the first time. And he owns service stations in Durban. And he said to me, done. He's like, you got looted, you got flooded twice, he's out. He's like, it's been fun, but he can't see himself rebuilding. Imagine rebuilding Cliff Central 3 times.
No, dude.
Like once the ground, like after a while you'd be like, let's just go somewhere else and do this thing. Or let's do something else. So a lot of people are in that like space now where they're thinking it might just be better to be somewhere else because the rebuilding, and even the threat. I mean, like if you're not actually rebuilding, just the thought of I might have to. Like we're approaching July, and KZN people are like apprehensive, right? Because anniversary, even though it's not like a given thing that every anniversary people behave the same way, there is that feeling in the air that we have to be vigilant in July. Like who wants to live like that?
That's horrible. That's horrible. I mean, so somebody says here that all that may be true about the tragedies in KZN. The real tragedy is the inability of local government to access emergency funding to fast-track repairs and relief efforts. Just saying. Yeah, that's also true. I mean, there was a time where the job of government was to fix things after they go wrong. And I think that we've forgotten that that's what they're really there for. They need to get their asses in gear. They've got access to all this emergency funding. The national government has made money available to them. They must fix the bridges, fix the roads, fix the pipes and the electricity supply and the water supply, tidy the place up and get it going up and running as quickly as it can. Because the more time that goes by, the more money people will lose. The local community is suffering already, and it's not going to get better for them unless the local authorities can fix things as quickly as possible. But I did want to give you a chance to talk about it because we can't have you sitting there in KZN and the rest of us pretending that this didn't happen. I mean, you mentioned this anniversary of July and how people are apprehensive about a month of July. That's crazy. I'd never even thought about that before. That's what a terrible way to live.
No, because some looting happened.
No.
2-3 weeks ago. There's one of the retailers I do some work for, and I got off a plane, and one of the directors, hey, how you, whatever, catching up, and then I was like, there's threats of looting. You guys must be like, there's just too much, and he's like, no, it's not too much. we were looted last night, and this was like 2-3 weeks ago. And he's like, and it was a store in Hammersdale and a big retailer, and he's like, if it's in Hammersdale, then in his mind it's definitely happening in Amlazi because they were hit there the last time. So he's saying to me, it's just this whole consistent wondering, where should we secure, where do we send more resources? And you're a big retailer with you like just it's a mind bender.
It's terrible.
The government thing, Gareth. The tender process makes it very difficult to get stuff done, and then even when they do go to it, it's full of that's where all the corruption happens.
If we make it easier, the problem is if we make it easier to do the whole tendering process and getting money from government, then all the crooks will find it easier to steal the money. If we make it harder, then it maybe prevents a few crooks, but it also makes it difficult for the honest people and the people who are trying to get the work done to access that money. So you're screwed if you do, screwed if you don't, hey?
Yeah, and I must be honest, I'm not a big fan of asking government for anything personally. As a philosophy of life. Yeah. Like I don't personally believe the government's supposed to supply jobs. Not because
Chris says, KZN people, the Cape is full. Do not come here. Northern Cape, on the other hand, is ready.
Pumalanga is waiting for you.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. Listen, by the way, you think KZN is in a state at the moment. We're actually going to be talking to the ambassador from the Ukraine later on. She's the ambassador for the Ukraine in South Africa, Botswana, Mozambique, etc. In SA, her name is Liubov Abravitova, rather, and she will be talking to us about the situation there. So if you think KZN is bad, I mean, at least you're not the Ukraine, and we'll find out exactly what's going on there, get an update from the ambassador who's here in South Africa. And I met her the other day, and she's terrific, and she'll tell us all that we need to know about that situation. So stick around. She'll be with us in probably about 20 minutes from now. That's going to be an interesting conversation too. Yeah. So, all right, let's just look at a few things that that are on your mind and on Simphiwe's mind this morning, because there's a lot going on. I just want to talk quickly about, it seems that everybody at the office wants Simphiwe to join Tinder. And I thought you were already on some of these dating apps, Simphiwe.
No, I'm not on a single dating app. I personally think I'm far too young for them at this moment in time. But everyone in the office clearly thinks they know better than me, and they are really pushing to create a Tinder account on my behalf. So even though I'm saying, no, guys, I don't want it, they're like, it's cool. Girl, you don't know what you want, so we'll create this for you, and we will do the matches, and all you need to do is pitch up on the dates. And I don't know how to feel about that. I'm just like, guys, no.
Have you ever used a dating app?
No, I've never been on any of them because, first of all, I mean, when it all started, when the dating app started, then I was still doing a lot of TV and radio stuff, so I'm pretty sure there were fake profiles of me on there anyway. And if I did, I was pretty sure that people would say, oh, it's not really. No, I was pretty sure. No, you just know people are going to say, oh, it's not really you. How are you going to prove it's you? And I'm not getting into that.
I wasn't Tinder. I was, and they do say that. Is it really you?
So there was this dating site, which was an app actually, which someone told me about, which I remember discussing on the show, where you have to be vetted to get in. It's like everyone in Hollywood uses it because that's where all these famous celebrities meet each other. It sounds like such bullshit. It's called Raya, Raya, and these people would but you need to actually have, like, they check your following on social media, they check they essentially go through your CV, and then if you're approved, if you're verified, you get on that. So I went on that because I wanted to kind of just see what the system worked, and also let everybody on the show know how it actually worked. But I gave up on that after a week or two, and there was no one on there that I recognized or that I thought was interesting or famous. So I got off, but I haven't ever done any of this, and neither. I'm surprised, Simphiwe, you haven't.
No, I'm actually anti-dating apps. I want to meet someone at a bar, at a party. Let's talk, and then see where it goes. I'm warming up to even people sliding in the DMs because I know that's how people meet now. But dating apps, I'm just like, hold on. I'm just too young. I think I'm far too young.
Prepare yourself. There's lots of pain there. People there. When you click someone, you must prepare to be a counselor. Talk about the past. You don't join there. Just think it's gonna be fun. They are people are dating apps. Hey, people, bosses, people's partners are still chasing them down.
Nah, but you see, that's the issue. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not here to help you heal and go through your healing journey. Like, do the work on your own. Don't involve me. Like, dude, I just want to meet someone the old school way. And it seems like everyone's like, no, girl, that's died. Like, you're never gonna find a man if you keep doing what you're doing. It's not working for you. And I'm just shocked. Like, they actually are very, very close to creating this account without my permission. I don't understand.
No, you can't let people do this without your permission. That's just not on. Sanele says, SIM card looks so dignified and glorious in that duk of hers this morning. Definitely Mama Winnie multiplied. Yeah, people are talking about this, but what is it with people who always, they'll look at Simphiwe and they'll say, oh, she's looking so great at the moment. We have to find her a man. What if she doesn't want one right now? Nobody asks her what she wants, and if she does want something, let her figure it out herself. You'd make a profile for her on Tinder. That's ridiculous.
Thank you. Like, I'm just like, guys, let me do me. If it takes me 40 years to find a man, that's okay. But I'd like to find him in a particular manner at a braai where I know he actually exists and I can talk to his friends immediately and be like, hey, Chief, your friend here is cute, but what's the story?
Exactly.
Now, Tinder, who are you? Like, are you catfishing me? Is this nah, that's too much work. No, guys. No.
I don't know Gareth, but some don't wait, don't say 40 years. Because the older you get, I don't know, Gareth. I was married before and then I was divorced, and then I was divorced for about 4 or 5 years, and I got married again. And then in that period, dating when you're old is not it's a sport.
I mentioned it's difficult, dude. I mentioned it on the show. I went on a date probably about 2.5, 3 months ago now, because I thought I don't want to be this self-satisfied, sad, lonely person who doesn't make an effort with other people anymore and only knows the people he knows. So I decided I was going to do this, and it went well enough. But it's an effort, and you're right. Like, as you get older, dating becomes harder because you look at the situation, you go, all right, I'm already this much happy. If I meet this amazing girl and she takes me to that much happier, it's only that much difference. And if I don't go on the date, I save this much money and I can stay at home. And actually it all ends up being like, you're like, well, I don't need to do this.
You're over-analyzing. Save money. Spend the money, Gareth. Spend the Clifton for millions. Open up the couch and just spend the money.
John says, hit the club, Simphiwe. Love lives there. I don't know about that. Dogozo says, the old school way is the best way to meet good quality people. It's like Tinder in real life. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the right thing for Dogozo to say there. It's interesting. Like Ruth says she met her fiance on Tinder. A lot of people meet on these dating apps, eh? Lots of people I know, couples that have been married even.
Yeah, I know people, and I won't lie. I mean, people didn't even date. We just we met up, we hung out, we realized we had common interests, and we just stayed friends. Like, till today, we're still friends. Nothing happened, but because there's a lot of I don't know about dating men on Tinder. I don't know what that's like, but there's lots of great women on Tinder who are just on their own for whatever reason. They went a long time.
You say that, but I've got a couple of friends who've been trying to find girlfriends on Tinder, and they said to me it's an absolute shit show because all these people, as you mentioned already, Carvin, they've all got I've got 2 kids in tow. I just lost my job. They're looking for therapy. They're not looking for a boyfriend or a husband. And you don't want to be the guy who sorts that shit out, do you?
must be a psych on to date on Tinder. You must be ready. You must have your 7 points to recover.
That does not sound fine. That just sounds like what exhausting. Like I'm going to need to unpack after talking to you with another homegirl. I'll be like, girl, you won't believe what this man told me. He's going through so that's stress. I don't need that baggage. No.
But you have to try to find your guy.
But you know, when the braai ends, you can go home with these apps. I imagine the stuff follows you around because you got your phone with you the whole time. I also just think we've all got enough of our problems. We've got stuff that we're all dealing with: health and work and relationships and money and all kinds of things. And then you throw like someone else's problems on top of that. None of us have the time and space for that stuff. I'm sorry. It's just not right.
Come on, Sam. Go to those braais.
What can I get invited to braais? Like clearly that's not working in my life.
I got loads of friends. They got baggage though, so it's like
wait, what is baggage? Is baggage like 2 kids, divorced, or like they not in they like depressed? What kind of baggage are you talking about?
Yeah.
You.
No, you don't need that. Listen, someone.
You can't do much with that person. You can't buy a house together.
No. Oh, you clearly have no. You don't know my spec. You clearly don't know my spec. I'm trying to live a soft life. Okay, let me not hide that. Let me not hide that.
Can't buy a car. They can't get a cell phone contact.
I tell you what, I'm on Tinder. I'm on Tinder, but I'm really looking for 200,000 rand. Can you help me? Listen,
you know,
a friend of
my
mine,
enemies are after me. Send man.
I haven't spoken to her for a long time. I suddenly went through. You know, you can archive messages on your phone. So you put them, and then you kind of forget that they're there because whoever checks the archived messages. But I went in there yesterday, and this girl had messaged me probably about a week ago, and I hadn't seen it. That's not too bad. Sometimes they can sit there for a month, and she was basically like, let me actually read it. It's quite hilarious. She's like, hey, how are you? Haven't seen you since the wedding. Are there any guys you know here in Joburg? I'm single. I sent her a message. I'm like, yeah, I mean, no, because no, this is not going to happen with her. But I was like, yeah, all right, I'll invite you to the next thing that we all do.
Right.
Get you to hook up with somebody. I'm sure it will be doable. She's good looking. I don't see.
Do you host braais that you think?
No, I mean I sometimes do. Like on weekends, I'll do something here some weekends. Otherwise, we'll go out somewhere. All depends on what everybody's doing. But there are also those people who've just decided that they don't want to be very sociable. I mean, one or two of my friends, there's a couple that we know, and they've, I wouldn't say they've become reclusive, but we don't see them as much as we used to. And yeah, like those friends you were talking about earlier.
Just.
People have got different patterns going on now. But Simphiwe is ready to roll. So if anybody wants to invite her to braais, then send her an email. She'll be there.
Yeah, I'll take a braai.
At your age now, as you get older, right? So like I'm saying, I'm in my late 30s, about to enter my 40s. Do you find like the friends that you're keeping, and this applies to you as well as Gareth, as they become like mothers and fathers and move into like that family space, do you find less in common with some of those friends you had as their life kind of takes a new path?
Yes, I've seen it.
That's
in
a
my
hard
life
question.
with my friends.
What do you say, Simphiwe? You've seen it and you could feel the change?
Yes, and it hasn't even been with friends where they have kids. It's kind of been, I think, with us kind of seeing like a financial shift. Because not everybody we didn't all start on the same like playing fields. And now that some of us are moving and progressing financially, it's like, oh, I'd like to do dinner next week and I want to go to a particular restaurant. And so there's like this lifestyle that we're kind of getting into, and some people are not catching up. So it's like, it's hard to, I wouldn't say still be friends with them, but it's like you don't keep in touch as much because you're like, well, I'd like to go to this restaurant this weekend. Hey, you want to come on? Yeah, I can't always pay for you. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, and that's the life I want to have. You know, that's me doing me, and I don't want to put anybody under pressure for my lifestyle. So it's like sometimes you realize, oh, I haven't seen you in 6 months because financially you are like not where I'm at. And you notice that, okay, there's a shift now. Even when we talk about holidays, you know, like before we're just like, oh, let's do a weekend away. Yes, and now someone's like, yo, me, I'm paying 6K for school fees, and you're like, yo, that's 6K. I want to go to Harties. And now you're seeing like a shift in lifestyle completely, and it's like, girl, I'll talk to you and I'll call you, and that's where I'm at in life. Just seeing the lifestyle change, in terms of finances. That's been the biggest one. Where now we're like, okay, cool. That's
true.
Some leaving our friends behind since she's working at club.
I haven't found that my friends have changed. If they've had kids and they've moved on and their priorities are different. I know of at least 4 examples in my friend group where we still see them, we still talk. They haven't changed at all. They've become parents as well, which in some cases have made them better and more interesting. In other cases, it's made them really busy, but I don't think they've changed. Like I still love them for the reasons that I loved them before. And I think it's really down to each person, because you get those people who completely change. They only hang around with other parents. They only do, their kids basically take over their entire life, and they lose their personality in the process. Now, those people, you can't do anything about them. But luckily, I would say that out of my friend group, we've all kind of, most of them have stayed the same. And by that, I don't mean they haven't got better. They definitely have got better, but they've become more interesting. They've added the kid to the mix. It's not a worse situation. It's actually quite a lot more interesting.
Have you had the same friend group for most of your life?
No, I mean, like there's a core of probably about 10 of us who, I mean, some of them have been overseas and come back. Some of them live overseas permanently. Some of them have had kids. Some of them have been single forever. You know, it really depends. But those are people I've known since varsity. So it's a long time now. It's getting on, you know, more than 20 years. And then there are other people who come and go. You know, they're those ones who, like, they're friends for a little while, and then you don't see them for a while, and then you see them again suddenly, and you pick up where you left off. So it really depends. I think everybody's got those different categories of friends.
You know what I struggle with is like a famous friends, if that makes sense. So, because if you become a bit of a public figure, and I'm more like Asian, like more of a public figure than nationally, and then you start like finally hanging out with other people in the same profile for a bit.
No, you do.
And then it's like a weird thing, because for me, I've always struggled with that one. So my core friend groups, like the guys I was like in high school and primary school with, because I always found that those, like, and I don't know, you get it, you obviously over the years, people in different profiles, how you maintain those relationships, if you maintain them at all. I struggle to maintain relationships with other profiled people. I just feel like those are not genuine, like, connections. And I'm sure you do make genuine connections, but I'm almost scared of that.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, famous people, I don't really have close friends who are famous people. I know a lot of people who in South Africa are in inverted commas famous. I mean, like, again, South African famous doesn't compare with famous in the US, for example.
It's also Africa. You think in one pocket, not unknown in another.
Yeah, precisely. And I mean, I know people who are in entertainment. I know people who are in politics. I know people who are in, you know, business. There are lots of different areas where you could say these people are famous, but I don't know that I'm best buddies with them. I sort of had categories of friends as well, and I like to mix them up occasionally. So it's not like I'm keeping them separate from each other. Yeah, I'll mix them up just to see what happens. But it can sometimes work out really well. Like, you never know, people might make business connections. There might be opportunities that they can explore together. I love seeing the people I love being happy. So I will always look for a way to introduce them to each other if there's some usefulness going on there.
Yeah.
And that gives me the biggest thrill. It's almost like you're playing people chess, and you move this piece to here and that piece there, and then they suddenly they come up with a business together, and then they both make lots and lots of money. That's amazing when that happens. Or you put two people in the same room, and you're like, I see a little thing going on there, and then they end up dating for a while. That's also nice.
A matchmaker.
Maybe.
Something close to Gareth.
Yes. Around me. I'll help you.
Why do you think I'm on the show? Huh?
Yeah.
She's no fool. She's around for the right reasons. Okay, I want us to turn our attention to something which has been going on, and a serious thing that's been going on in the news. But for many of us, it's now become background noise. And that's not because we don't care. It's because we have a very short attention span. We know what the news, you were a journalist, Carvin, you know all about this. We know what the news media does. They feed you clicks. You are fascinated by a story for a couple of hours, maybe a couple of days. If you're really lucky, you could pay attention for a few weeks, and then suddenly it gets put on the back burner. Now, in March of this year, Vladimir Putin made the unprecedented move of invading the Ukraine, and we all could see it live in real time on our TVs. It's been going on now for a couple of months, and I think for many of us, our eye has been off the ball. I don't know how many people I've bumped into who say, do you know what's going on in the Ukraine? And that's an embarrassing thing, because this is a major world event. It's probably the most important political and global event of the year so far. I don't think would you guys disagree? I mean, I really think it's probably the biggest story in the world.
Have
and
you
yet,
seen the cost of fuel?
Well, exactly. I mean, that is where it affects us, right? That's where it hits us, and food shortages and all kinds of other things. It's disrupted the world economy. And I thought, when I bumped into the ambassador for the Ukraine the other day, I thought it would be a really good opportunity for us to actually catch up with her, find out from her what's really going on. She's probably the best person. She's definitely the best person in South Africa for us to talk to when it comes to finding out what's going on in the Ukraine. Also found out that she has like 8 jobs rolled into one. So I don't know where she finds time to speak to us, but I'm really glad that she could join us this morning. Liubov Abravitova is the Ukraine's main mission leader in Southern Africa. So she runs the ambassador's role here in South Africa, Lesotho, Swaziland, Mozambique, Angola, Zimbabwe, Zambia. I mean, it's a huge job that you've got there, Liubov. Thank you for making time for us. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
Good. So listen, I mentioned in the introduction, we've kind of taken our eye off the ball. Obviously, for the people of your country, they haven't had a chance to breathe in between March and now. And what's happened has been nothing short of devastating. And some people's lives will never be the same again. Some people have lost their lives. It continues to be a really harrowing situation. Can you just give us a quick update on what's been happening in the last few weeks in the Ukraine and what the situation on the ground is there?
Well, the situation is not going easier, and the open invasion started on the 24th of February, as you know, so we are almost 4 months trying to protect our land and our sovereignty. As of today, around 20% of our land was captured by Russians. Just to give you an idea, this is the size of Italy. Wow. And the main battlefield now is around the eastern parts of Ukraine. Obviously, the most difficult humanitarian situation is on that measure line. Meantime, the missile attacks continuing through all the country. There is no place in all Ukraine, the biggest country of Europe, where you can feel yourself safe. Though we reported about more than 12 million people left their houses, left their places of living, 5 million of them left abroad. And what we see during the last month, that they're trying to come back. They're trying to come back to those places that were deliberated, and they're trying to rebuild the places where they lived for all their lives. This is in a nutshell what is happening today.
It's a horrible and unenviable job that you have trying to explain this to people over and over again. But the real story on the ground must be absolutely harrowing for each of these people. There's loss, there's pain, there's all kinds of real strife and torment going on in their lives. And we can focus on those individual stories, and I'm sure you've heard many of them, and you probably get updates every single day about what people are going through. But what is the macro outlook here? I mean, is there an end in sight? Because I hear from some people that the Russians at a certain point bitten off more than they could chew, that militarily that they were stretched, that perhaps they weren't doing so well, especially as they were trying to get closer and closer to Kiev. They were doing a less decent job of what they thought would be a walk in the park. And then I heard just the other day from some people that the Russians are actually ramping up their attacks, particularly in the east of Ukraine. What is the story at the moment? How well is the Ukraine doing in terms of being able to fight back and push back? Do your military forces have the required equipment, ammunition, personnel? Are they getting support from their allies in the rest of the world? Or is Russia winning? I mean, that's really what a lot of people are interested in.
So definitely Russia is not winning. And I think that in terms of their initial goals, they already lost this war. And maybe they're just trying to keep their faces. Now, to be very fair, we don't have an equal capabilities in terms of military equipment, weapons, and the army. And this is something that Russia did not anticipate, that Ukraine would fight and that Ukraine would resist, and would resist for so long.
Yeah.
Yes, we're receiving the support from our partners in terms of weapons, but it's not enough to fight back. And that is why on all the platforms we are calling to all our partners to continue to provide this military equipment and weapons, because obviously Russia is not going to approach a diplomatic solution of its own invasion. And now it's absolutely impossible. They continue to not only missile attacks and fights on the ground, they also mining the vast territory of Ukraine and of the equatorial of Black and Azov Sea. And that's why we see this huge food insecurity that is unfolding dramatically. And probably you heard the statement of my president to the African Union just recently regarding that. Because basically what is happening, that now Putin and his proxies are keeping all of us, the prisoners of their war, and they are causing the food insecurity to most of the Africa today. They are trying to make exhausting the rest of the world of their war in Ukraine, saying that the sanctions that were imposed on them affecting the food security, which is nonsense, because in our ports we have around 20,000 million tons of different agricultural commodities and fertilizers sitting there without being able to move. I just want
to interrupt you quickly, because I think for many of us it's hard to get a grip on these numbers. So Ukraine's biggest exports were mostly foodstuffs and things like sunflower oil and obviously a lot of other things. Where we're experiencing shortages here in South Africa and in the rest of the world, obviously some of that is due to what is happening there on the ground with Russia and the Ukraine. What are the major exports that are most seriously affected and that probably are having an effect on us?
So to have you an idea, Ukraine is 10% of the world export of wheat.
Wheat.
And wheat. and 14% of world export of corn, and 47% of world's export of sunflower oil.
Right.
And even if in the official trade turnover and statistics, you will not see the direct link in trade or supplies from Ukraine to particularly South Africa, it doesn't mean that this market, even being in some parts self-sufficient, will not be affected. It's not only agricultural commodities that I just mentioned. It's also about fertilizers, on which a lot of African countries are dependent as well. Some countries in Africa dependent as far as 70% on wheat and corn from Ukraine. Maybe not South African region, but when we speak about the interruption of supply chains, when we speak about one part of the world which will be suffering because of the hunger, basically, then it will affect all the world. And let's be very frank with that.
Can I just throw in before, because I'm sure that Carvin and Simphiwe have some questions for you as well, but I just want to throw this in quickly. The South African government has hardly been like in lockstep support of the Ukraine. And in fact, you could argue that the South African government have been quite sympathetic to the cause of Russia in this situation. That must have made your job a lot more complicated. And I know that diplomacy is very, very difficult to coordinate. It's a little bit of a dance. You're obviously keeping in touch with many NGOs. You're working with a lot of South Africans. You're possibly working quite well with the South African government in some ways. But is it difficult to deal with a world where everybody looks at things in such a binary fashion? They're like, either you're for these people or against these people, or you're for those people and against those people. And what is the situation for the Ukraine and South Africa? Because I think you probably have a lot of popular support, but sometimes it doesn't look like the government of South Africa is particularly interested in your cause.
You're right. It is a challenge. It is, as I call it, the separate battle for Ukraine in South Africa and in the region. And there are a lot of reasons for this, and maybe some mistakes that were done by as well. And let me be very self-critical, because while we were building our relations within our own region and developing as a young country, and you have to understand that we are that young as South Africa. We have only 31st anniversary of independence this year. So we were not really able to support those relations that we traditionally had with African countries. And our input in the struggle, for example, with apartheid in South Africa was not really noticeable. And we're finding ourselves in the shadow of Russia, speaking the narrative and taking the responsibility and the pride of assisting to South Africa in that, while there were 15 countries in USSR who were helping and assisting and learning and training and all the possible sorts of assistance that could be imagined. This is the first point. Second point, we are finding ourselves in the country which has a strategic partnership with the Russian Federation, who is the BRICS member, and tomorrow there will be the next virtual summit of BRICS, whereas I was following that the question of Russian invasion of Ukraine is not even on the agenda. So it's in terms of diplomacy and contacts with officials and trying to make their position more neutral. It's quite complicated, but indeed we have support within Africa from South African population, and I think the targeted audience today are those who don't have really an access to the wider information and who were receiving propaganda from Russian side for a long time, just to unveil this fairy tales and to explain the reasons, roots, historical aspects of the invasion and why and what can be done. And basically, it's important to see what is the way out of that. And when you look at it, and I anticipate that would be the question that the viewers, listeners would want to hear, how we could stop this. And the answer as of today for myself is Ukraine cannot give up. We cannot stop fighting, because if we stop fighting, we are losing Ukraine and we are losing Ukrainians. But the world still can do, because only being united, saying and isolating Russia and saying stop, enough is enough, will definitely make it action.
Last question from me before I let the others have a go here. But is there a way out of this? Do we have to see this war go to the bitter end where both countries are devastated economically? I mean, at the moment, you could argue that Vladimir Putin is enjoying all of this, because I read this morning that Russia is now China's biggest oil supplier, and all over the world people are paying a high price for oil. This is obviously working very well for Russia, so they have a nice runway here to future economic growth, to enormous riches, because they supply a lot, or used to supply a lot of Europe with their oil and gas. They'll now supply places like China. You could argue that Russia is maybe in a better situation now also than it was before the invasion, because inside of Russia, Vladimir Putin is more popular than ever. What do you see as the end game? What is the best possible outcome for the Ukraine, and what is the worst possible outcome for the Ukraine going into the, the where do we go with this scenario?
I will agree with you that Putin probably is more popular than ever in his country. And I will not agree with you that he is enjoying himself, because the picture that they are trying to represent about their economical achievement. Can you still see me?
Yes.
Economical achievement. Yeah, the narrative about the economical achievements are very far from being true, and all the international researchers organizations will prove that the level of inflation, the drop of GDP will be dramatic for Russia, and it already finds itself 10 years back in terms of the economy. But yes, the support to Putin is huge. And by the way, if you analyze, or one could analyze, the stories of Russia's invasions in Georgia, in Moldova, and other conflicts, they were happening exactly at the times when Putin was losing his support. So this is kind of a mechanism by which he is trying to mobilize his supporters and voters in the country. And of course, the propaganda machine, which has been working for 20 years, it's giving its fruits. I just came back from coming to the point of oil. Indeed, the world is so interconnected that even the consumers of the product who don't feel it's fair to consume it from Russia today cannot immediately refuse or cancel their contracts. And we will not see it immediately, though we see more than 1,000 big companies, not in oil production, but otherwise, are leaving the market of Russian Federation, which is causing not only a problem inside of Russia itself, but it's causing a big problem for the industry of Russia, and then it affects obviously all the world. But meantime, they have a lot of other sources of profits. I just came back from the Kimberley protests in Kasane in Botswana, which is dealing, this is kind of forum which is dealing with diamond industry, and Russia being a very vast, massive part of the diamond industry of the world, already is feeling challenges because the consumer is becoming more and more aware about the war, about the invasion, and they are starting to refuse to buy Russian diamonds. So they're trying to find out the origin of the stones, of the gems. So we will see it more and more. It maybe will not be obvious in the short term perspective, but already in the midterm, we will see it more. So that's why we say that the pressure on Russia, both economical and political isolation, and of course the supply of weapons to Ukraine in order to be able to further resist, now it's crucial because Russia is losing more and more of first of all support. Then people are also starting to question themselves what is happening and why it's happening there in Russia, I mean. And of course, the economy is falling down, the level of life is dropping. Everything of this will definitely make Russia weak and will not allow to continue in the future the war.
All right, so Carvin, Simphiwe, there's probably stuff on your mind this morning that you want to put to the ambassador, and I do want to ask one or two other questions when you guys are done. But I think it's only fair, since we're trying to get to the bottom of this, to try and understand things better. And I think anyone, no matter who you believe is right, the propaganda wars, no matter what this is doing to your own back pocket and the cost of fuel and food imports and all the rest of it, there's a human story at the middle of this that anyone who denies that the suffering of families, of people who are trying to just live their lives and have to flee their homes and are being subject of missile attacks. No one wants to be on the wrong side of that argument. But I'm sure, Carvin, when you read these stories as a former journalist, you must have a few questions yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Ambassador. I just I wanted to know if you were as surprised as I was by the response of the government's one thing, but some of the South African people. And I'm only aware of this because in March, April, I put together some comedy shows to help raise some funds for people in the Ukraine, and together with the Frederick Newman Foundation. I think they might have sent some invites to your offices, and we had some Ukrainian people attend the shows. But some of the responses on some of the posts that I posted, like basically advertising the fundraiser, we used Gift of the Givers to distribute the money that was raised. And some of the response from South Africans, I was like quite shocked at the amount of, I don't know if it's propaganda or ignorance about what's happening in Ukraine, but the support and almost like criticizing myself and other comics who are part of what I was putting together for supporting Ukraine. I just wanted to know, coming into this, did you guys know that there would be this sort of response from South African people, or was that surprising to you?
Well, I would not generalize, and how I see it already from the distance of 4 months being here, participating in all kind of events, attending all the talk shows, and even just showing up on social media and reading the responses of South Africans. First of all, a big part of those comments that you will see will be bots, and we already recognizing them and the style, and yeah, it's working. This is not only the war on the battlefield; it's a big propaganda war, big informational war, and my strategy in that was that Ukraine already lost like a lot in terms of economy, and we can speak about the numbers obviously, and of course we will not have the opportunities to counteract with the same weapon, and we're a democratic country, we would never do it. So our strategy became to appear in media as much as we can, be welcome to any open discussions as we're having today, and let people think, let people ask the provocative questions and to find out more information, because the propaganda is unveiling itself very quickly during the war. Sometimes you don't need to do anything. 1 week after Russia would declare that there is a chemical weapons in Ukraine, it will be proven that it's not the case. And we've seen it for all this time. Then another part of the people will be self-protective. It's self-preservation. When you think this is far away from you and you don't want to be involved. You just say there are so many conflicts already around. We just in Cabo Delgado, we see the Central African Republic. We see what's happening in Ethiopia. It's closer to us here, so why should we be worried about that? And this is my work to explain why this conflict is different. It's not because our lives are more expensive than our other lives. It is not. Every life matters. Every mother loves his or her child the same way everywhere in the world. But the consequences of that particular invasion, politically, economically, and even for, in generally speaking, for the whole infrastructure of the global political system will be changing, and those changing will bring us a lot of instability and conflicts. That's the thing. So, and another part of the society is trying to understand. And what I appreciate is that, yes, they're not aware about that the war was happening since 2014. That before 24th of February, we lost 14,000 Ukrainians killed by Russians. That we had more than 1.5 million internally displaced people. They don't know. But when you explain this, they're starting to read, they're starting to know. And then that picture is clearer, and obviously the support is growing.
The second thing I asked was the issue of joining NATO, and obviously using that as like a constant reasoning as to why NATO on his doorstep. How much of a conversation is that still happening? I know President Zelensky was discussing quite a bit with NATO about joining. Where are you guys with that sort of conversation?
So NATO and European Union membership aspiration is in the constitution of Ukraine. That's something that, again, many people don't aware of. And in order to change that, if the population of Ukraine would decide this, that would be a process. And this is not on the discussions at all, if you want to hear this from me, because during the war times, you just cannot organize the referendum or something on that kind. Meantime, on the main front, on the main page today, is the status of candidate to the European Union, which we really hope to achieve in the nearest days. And I think that the possibility of that is very high, and I'm looking forward to this. So these are the two reasons that Russia declared to try.
I think we've just slowed right down. Either that's Russian bots attacking the system.
Protecting.
Oh, sorry, there we go. Sorry, Liubov. You just froze for a minute there, so we missed some of that. Sorry, if you just repeat the last two sentences.
Sure. NATO being the defensive alliance and protective alliance, suddenly and unexpectedly for Putin and his proxies, became more united than ever. And you've seen the recent aspiration and request of Finland and Sweden to become the NATO states, those who traditionally were neutral. So that shows you that in that part of the world, the regional insecurity is getting its and fueling, it's getting that temperatures that it is very obvious why Ukraine always looked at the perspective of becoming NATO member, because it wanted to be protected, because we knew that we would not be supported in case of Russian aggression or any other interference. It would be not sufficient for us with our own possibilities to protect ourselves. And it was in negotiations for years. And it was not on the table. And even now, if most of the countries would support to welcome Ukraine in NATO, there would not be a consensus which would enable us to join. So it never was the case before 24th of February and could not be the reason for Russia's invasion.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to draw this to a close, but we've already reached 8 o'clock. And Ambassador, I'm very aware of the fact that you have to run missions in several different countries, and you have lots of other people to talk to today. But thank you so much for your time, and it's good to hear from your own point of view and from the point of view of the people of Ukraine what's precisely happening on the ground. Obviously, lots of comments that are hugely supportive of you. There are also a lot of comments here that are very supportive of Russia. I mean, this is the world we live in. Everything's kind of binary, and people jump on one side and they forget about the other side. And we hope to bring a little bit of balance to that conversation this morning. But thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you spending the morning with us. And Carvin, it's always good to see you, my friend. I hope we check in with you again soon.
Been fun, yeah.
Very good. All right, Simphiwe and I will see you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, bright and early. Don't miss it. We've got the Burning Platform with Pumi Mashiko and a whole lot more coming up on the Gareth Cliff Show tomorrow. Have an excellent day, everybody. Be good. Get lots done.